Hey, what's going on? My name's Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and you're listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you replace harmful patterns with new possibilities. In each episode, we'll explore topics that inspire confidence, direction, and resilience. In this episode, we're going to do an interview. I actually talked to another person. Hooray, because the pandemic is here. No one has anywhere to go, so I get to talk to a lot of people. But really, I just happened to run into this person, Casey Bass, and we had a great conversation. It was a lot of fun and interesting about being single and how to maximize our singleness for those of you who are single out there, and for those of you who wishing you're single and might want to take that step. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Now, I want to introduce you to my next guest, my very special guest, Casey Bass. And of course, I don't like to tell anybody else's story, so I'm going to let her tell you who she is and what she does. Casey, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again, Lee, for having me.
Fantastic. So, can you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. I am a HealVersationalist. I help people overcome their emotional blockages with healing conversation. I also specialize in helping singles to really begin to embrace their singleness and really begin to push through anything that would stop them as a single person and to maximize every area of their singleness by the method I created entitled Singleology.
All right. Yeah, that sounds really awesome because I'm a single person, so I'm really interested in hearing what you've got to say. I've been single for a while, and many people are single too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's a large audience out there for that. So listen up, singles. Listen up. So I wonder, how did you get started in this? Was there like a pattern of behavior that you noticed that led you to this?
Absolutely. I think the biggest pattern that I had that led me on this singleness and healing journey is codependency.
Hmm.
And that codependency started with me in childhood. In
Oh,
childhood. I grew up in a family without my father, and that abandonment just kind of started a snowball of codependency for my life. In every relationship, it would show up.
so can you tell us what is codependency?
Codependency is when, in my own words, it is when you are dependent upon someone else's energy to keep you energized. So
Mm-hmm.
literally, you're pulling on someone else for love. You're pulling on someone else for peace. You're pulling on someone else for joy because you haven't quite realized that you already have those things in your awareness. They're already with you. You don't need to get them from anyone else.
Right, right. Absolutely. So then you said that this happened when you were young and it was just a pattern that kept happening. When did you like see it show up? Now looking back, is there a story that you could tell where you've seen it?
Yeah, I think that the first time I really became more aware of it was after my divorce. I married very early at 20 just to get out of a dysfunctional home. I
Mm-hmm.
was divorced by 24. I was extremely codependent. And after that divorce, I went into a depression. After I went to my therapist for the very first time, because back then, I'm 46 now, that was in my 20s. Back
Mm-hmm.
then, therapy was like taboo. You couldn't
Yeah.
talk about it,
Yep. You
you
got to
know.
give it to God.
Right,
There you
right,
go.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I grew up in a very religious household. Just pray about it, keep it moving. suppress it. It just was not talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist was the very first person I ever heard use the word codependent. Because at that point, I didn't think I could go on. I felt like I needed a male because my dad, I did not grow up with my father. So I grew up not having that influence. And the one
Mm-hmm.
influence that I had was abusive. So I was looking for another male to complete me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the first time I had became aware of my codependence.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that definitely sounds like a pattern that would stick with you for a while. It was like with you for all of your life until then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the struggle to break that pattern had to be pretty big. Had to be pretty
Oh my,
big because
oh my
of
God,
course it showed
yes.
up everywhere. Because
Mhm,
it showed up
mhm,
everywhere in your relationships with your family,
mhm,
friends,
mhm.
coworkers,
Absolutely.
all of those things.
Every connection.
Every connection. So
Mhm.
then how did that show up in the connection with your friends?
In the connection with my friends, because of that deeply embedded abandonment issue, I didn't like for people to leave me. I would do whatever I had to do to keep people in my life, even if it meant erasure, even if it meant not using my voice, even if it meant I'm just going to please them just so
Mm-hmm.
they'll stay, but I'm not even going to mention what I need.
Right.
It always led to burnout in friendship. It always led to blow ups because I was holding everything in. I was not communicating, so I had
Mm-hmm.
learned that as a child growing up. You know, your voice is not needed. You are to be seen, not to be heard. So all of
Mm-hmm.
that led to even more codependence. I kept pulling on people and just doing what they wanted me to do just to stay connected to the relationship. So none of my relationships or friendships were healthy ones. They were all trauma bonds.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, that sounds very familiar to me because I was always like, just I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep them around. And that's just what we do. I'm only as good as what I can do for someone. And whatever I do for them, that'll keep them around. And I didn't realize I was doing the same thing. But you mentioned, so I'm sure there are other people out there who understand exactly what you're talking about, probably maybe even hearing this for the first time. And you also mentioned something, trauma bonding. Can
Yes.
you share about what is that?
Trauma bonding when you connect with someone at the level of pain. So let's just say, for instance, I'll use for instance, I would meet people that grew up in homes without a father. I
Mm-hmm.
would think, oh, I met someone and we got camaraderie. We have the same experience, but we had the same codependency.
Mm-hmm.
So we connected at the area of pain, not at a healthy place, but at the area of pain. So because we both were codependent, there's always this power struggle. I got to get love and support from you. You got to pull it from me. So we're pulling constantly at each other, and then the power struggle happens. Well, when the
Mm-hmm.
power struggle happens, there's going to be a winner and a loser. And usually that is when the relationship or the connection would end. It is because we connect at a place of pain where we have camaraderie. And those trauma bonds can feel a lot like divine connections, or,
Mm-hmm.
this is just the best friendship. It starts off in a honeymoon phase
Mm-hmm.
until the codependency or the abandonment or the rejection rears its head. And then we begin to play out these control dramas.
Wow, that's really interesting. You know, when you were saying that about pulling against each other, I was thinking about, how President Trump grabs people's hands and pulls them back, and like there's just like a struggle right there.
Right,
There's a connection, but it's awkward for both of us.
right.
Yeah,
It's
we think we're
forced.
supposed to do. Yeah, it's forced.
Mhm.
We think we're supposed to do this. We think we're supposed to be here, and it's just it doesn't end well. Doesn't end well, and that shows up everywhere. You said.
Yes, it does.
Mm. So that's something for people to definitely look out for. So then if people aren't connecting on these trauma bonds, if they're not connecting with trauma bonds, then what is the healthy thing to connect on?
The healthiest way to connect is from a space of I'm already complete when I show up in your life. There is nothing you need to give me to make me complete. You are already complete when you show up in my life. I don't need to give you anything for that completion. When two people show up that are already complete, nobody is trying to pull brick and mortar from the other to make their building sealed.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like we are both showing up in each other's lives, already doing, working in our purpose, already doing the things we love doing. And what we move from the codependence to interdependence, where we are bringing asset to one another's life, but we're okay if that person is not there because we've already fulfilled everything. We checked off all of our boxes in our singleness.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where
Okay.
the singleology piece comes in at, where you understand you have everything that you need. You don't need to get it externally. So when someone shows up in a healthy way, you're not codependent, you're interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
You're not leaning on each other for every ounce of strength. You know how to recharge yourself. You know how to energize yourself. You know how to rejuvenate. You don't have to have that person to do that. So
Right.
you move away from that clingy needy
Right. Right.
thing.
So it's not that you're going to stop using your voice when they're around. You're going to express what you feel and what you need.
Right.
Well,
Absolutely.
what if the relationship falls apart if I do that? What am I going to do?
Well, you move on.
No.
you this is
It's
what
scary.
this is where you have to deal with me. I had to deal with that abandonment because
Mm-hmm.
I was taught that you just do what everyone wants you to do. You please them and they'll stay.
Yeah.
But after a while, you'll figure out no matter what you do is gonna, they're still not gonna be pleased because they're trying to get from you what they couldn't get from another person. So there's always a deep hole that you'll never be able to fulfill. So
Well, well, I just have to say, I'm gonna. Well, what if that's just for that one person? I mean, we just couldn't work, but the next person will.
the next you're saying the next person will do it or won't do it.
They will. They'll work for me. I'll be able to fill that hole for them. Is that right?
Will you? Because you think about it, if the whole is some sort of emotional uh, depth, you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to be able to feel it. It's certain parts of us that only the divine can feel, and then there are
Mm-hmm.
parts of us that we are filled with in regards to connection. The connection feels it. But if you're trying to fill a space that maybe is only designed for the divine to feel and give you that fulfillment, that also is going to push you into a constant I'm working for love. I'm
Mm-hmm.
working for support. I'm working for attention. Well, already that's not unconditional love. That's conditional love, which is very unhealthy.
Yeah. And no doubt that it is unhealthy for you to work so hard for that because you're saying that people should just show up. Like, here you are, here I am. Let's just be together. Let's enjoy each other's company. I don't have to work anymore for you. You don't have to work anymore for me, but we do support each other, right?
Right.
So what is that?
Absolutely.
What does that healthy support look like?
Healthy support looks like acceptance. When a person shows up in my life at this point, I look at them as an individual that contributes in whatever area they contribute and however they are. I'm not there to fix them. And I think when we drop the fixer dynamic, when someone shows up in our life, it makes the relationship and the connection a lot lighter. So it looks like acceptance, and I tell people this a lot of times. Acceptance is not condoning. Someone may show up in your life and they may be doing something you don't like that they do. You should be able, from a mature space, to say, you know what? I really don't like that you do that, but I'm not here to change you. when the change comes, it has to be because that person is willing to change.
Right. And so if I was still in this codependence phase, I would think that, well, I just need to help them get to that point where they think they want to change. But that's not right.
No, because what you're doing is you're forcing what you feel is right for you onto them.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
exactly.
that's where you have a lot of fixers because a lot of people, and it's funny because I look at myself now and how I was 10 or 15 years ago, even, with my mentoring, I wasn't in the same space. I used to feel like it was my job, my duty to fix people, to help people heal. And, let me just help, let me get them from this space to another. But that really was never my job. It was never my job to heal another person or to fix another person. My job was to show up healed and to give an example to them of what healing looks like, that it piques their interest so that they want to experience what I am experiencing. That's when they start probing. That's when they start asking, how do you do that? How are you happy in these situations? How are you able to overcome this? Why is your demeanor the same all the time? It prompts people to start asking questions and wanting to know how they can do it. But if you're trying to force the fix, there's going to be automatic rebellion. It's like a child. When you try to force a child to take the red lollipop and they like the blue lollipops, they're going to kick and scream.
Yeah, definitely. Try to get me to go to bed. I'm not. I
Right.
want to watch TV.
All night long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we see these YouTube videos all the time of the kids. No, no, I'm not.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah. So I really like that you said those things, and I'm curious now about this because I want to make sure that we talk about the fact that you do heal people, and the approach to it is the it's not codependency, obviously, because you're speaking
Right.
about how it's not. And then want to clarify for everyone, what would make it codependent if you were that person who wanted to heal people? You feel great, you want to share that with people. What would that be codependent? What would codependence look like if you were doing it in the codependent way?
Codependence would look like, let's just say you were one of my clients and I'm suggesting to you these different things that would be beneficial for your healing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you would begin to reject what I say.
Yeah, no, I
If
don't
I
want to
am,
do it.
if yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just using an example. If you begin to reject what I say, then what happens is if I'm still in a codependent space, I'm needing you to accept everything that I say,
Mm,
or I'm feeling less of the person with the ability to heal if you don't accept it. I'm depending on your acceptance to validate my gifts. That's
gotcha.
what it would look like if I showed up in a codependent space.
All right. So then the healthy version is.
The healthy version is, let's just say I make a suggestion and you don't receive the suggestion. I'm still okay with my gifts and my abilities and I leave it open. I say, okay, if you want to try this, you can. If you don't, that's fine. Whenever you need, however you need me to support you, I'm going to be here. I don't cut the person off because it could be that they just need some time to think about it. And it may take months and that person never show up or I never hear from them again. Or I may never hear from them again at all until they have moved past the healing space. I look at healing as I'm dropping a seed every time I talk to someone. I may not be that person for them. I just may
Mhm.
be the person that drops the seed.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what showing up in a healthy way is. It allows the divine to let it take its course, even if you're not included.
Right. I like that a whole lot. Yeah. So everything you're saying is definitely about you and how you feel about yourself. And
Yes,
you're making these clear demarcations between yourself and the other person's feelings. Your feelings and those feelings, they don't mix up. They don't
right.
mix up. Right. And your feelings are your own and they have their own feelings and they're their own. They in no way reflect the abilities and the self-worth that you feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes,
Mhm.
that's the way it works. So if you're out there and you have a fixed mind, think about that. Like, how do you feel if someone rejects what you say? Are you going to fall apart?
Mhm.
What happens then? So I'm curious, maybe you can help some people share something that might help them if they notice that they're feeling like rejected and they feel really, really hurt. Is there something they can do to kind of help themselves get through it?
Absolutely. Because there are so many people that are really becoming more aware of their ability to help other people, whether it be emotionally, mentally, psychologically, whatever area, there's always going to be that tendency for you to take on too much of the burden of another person's healing. So the goal is to always stay centered in what your purpose truly is. It is not to take the burden of another person's healing. It is to show up and give suggestion in regards to that person's healing. You look at it differently. You're
Mm-hmm.
not carrying their load because the fixer carries the load for the person while the person walks without the load.
Mm-hmm.
The fixer has the whole load in their hand. And then when the person is kind of gallivanting and doing their own thing, because what the fixer does is makes the other person light because they're not carrying the load. The fixer is.
Yeah.
So the person continues pretty much in the same way that they were operating until the fixer gets so burdened down with that load that they explode. And typically, what the person does that is supposed to be being fixed is they will apologize or I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to lay this on you. They will take the
Mm-hmm.
load and find another fixer.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it doesn't work for you, but someone
Right.
else will
I'm
carry
going to
it.
find another person because there will be always another person that
Mm-hmm.
will and that's typically what they're doing. They're using other people to carry their loads because what they're really saying is I really don't have the strength to carry this load but for so long. So let me connect with somebody that I know will carry it at least for a little while. Let
Mm-hmm.
me get my strength back up. Let me run around a little bit. And then I know they're going to get tired. I'll take the load back and carry it a little while. And then I'll go find someone else. It's a strategy.
Yeah, it's like it feels really it feels really devious. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's a
yeah,
strategy.
it's like asking me to go shopping with you and I got no bags and then you just keep going to fifth and Saks or wherever you go to get
Right.
stuff. Walmart, let's just say that's a little more my level. Walmart,
Uh-huh.
Target, going
Uh-huh.
there doing a shopping spree and just coming out giving me all the bags. Like, oh,
Right.
but you did all this. Why am I
Right.
carrying it? What's going on? And you're not.
Right.
And I'm as a person who was a fixer, you know how it feels, and
Mhm.
it's like, well, what is? I carried all this stuff for you, and you don't even care about the. Look how
Right.
heavy it is for me.
Right.
And I know
Exactly.
one pattern that was stuck in is something like that. It was like, all right, you apologize, and
Mhm.
then, oh well, you really do care. I'm gonna pick these back up, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna carry on with you for a little more until I
Mhm.
just can't. Until I figure out you don't care. Ah,
Right. Uh-huh.
and the explosions that you were talking about and
Right.
things like that ended friendships and relationships and all kinds of
Yes.
stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
that's really devastating. So it's something to really look out for.
You have to be able to recognize those red flags. That's something I tell my clients and even singles when I'm mentoring. Are you ignoring the red flags? Because typically the pattern has been going on for a long time. It didn't just start. You just were the red flags were there. You were ignoring them. And typically we ignore them because there's something in us that doesn't want to disconnect.
Absolutely.
There is a codependency. There is a dependence on that, even though they're not really showing up 100%. Well, they're showing up 20%, and that's better than not having anybody. That's kind of
Yeah.
how we look at it. Mhm.
Yeah. And it's something that we're probably used to as well. It's something that, well, we've seen it. Like you said, you mentioned it in your childhood. Look, it's kind of
Yep.
like that. And it continues into my relationship. So we were talking about red flags right
Mhm.
there. Red
Mm.
flags. So some of the red flags in the relationships, you said singles aren't looking out for them. So
Mhm.
this is what happens with codependency. So you're right there.
Yeah.
You're like you. I'm looking at you as the kind of person who's like giving this
Yeah.
wisdom. So we've got these
Mhm.
singles out here who getting ready to couple up because
Yep.
the spring is coming. The spring is coming.
Yes.
People out there trying to grab something real quick. And
Yeah.
yeah, so what can you share with us? Is there anything that you can tell singles?
Absolutely. There's always a coupling up when it gets warmer. Because people are traveling more. Even, with the pandemic, there are a lot of the places that are opening up now, and more people are
Mhm.
starting to move around more, travel more, and all that good stuff. And so there is this innate increase probably in dating site subscriptions because it's
Yep.
getting
I know I'll be outside. I don't I'm going outside.
right. And so what I oftentimes tell singles is it's cool to get out and meet people, but don't
Mhm.
meet people with the notion that I'm going to meet my soulmate. I'm going to meet if when you go in with this ulterior motive of I'm getting ready to boost somebody up, I'm getting ready to you go in and already you're in your blind spots are there because your goal is just to be coupled. It is not to be healthy and coupled.
Mhm. And the
So
standards.
right, so the first thing that comes along, the first train that leaves the depot that looks in your direction or blows the horn in your direction, you're riding that train. And you're not looking at the fact that some of the cars are dilapidated. You're not looking at the train, you're just listening for the horn. You're not
Mhm.
looking at the condition of the train, that down the track, the third car is so dilapidated it throws the whole train off center, but you weren't paying attention to that because the first car was blowing the horn and it looked pretty cool. You didn't go down the last 15 cars to see what was there. That's the
Mhm.
learning process. And I think the biggest mistake that singles made, and I made this mistake for years, even when I was connecting with people, is that we skip the friendship process. We skip over learning one another. We skip over really trying to understand that person from a friend space. And lastly, you get physical and sexual way too early, and it throws everything off center. And I think if singles would just slow down and not rush, and learn and really start pulling from that individual, getting to know that person. That's what it's inspecting the other 15 cars. And
Mhm.
then you decide, okay, do I want to go further with this individual? Do I want to learn more about them? Or let me just keep them in the friend zone. Right now, they're really not what I want. Another thing that singles do is that they don't really know themselves. So they meet other people to help them to learn who they are when you should know yourself before you even try to move into a relationship space.
Mhm. So when people get into relationships and they're like, "They make me better," they can that can be a little bit of a codependency thing because there's a difference between being supported and being changed into something that
Right.
if you wanted to change into, you would just do it.
Right. And you wouldn't need another person to do it.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
cheerleader, a motivator, but nobody to tell you how you need to be.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so as we mature, we should know. I mean, we should be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, I need to change this about me. It
Mhm.
shouldn't take another person coming into your life saying, "Hey, you need to change that about you," when you already know that you see the stain on your shirt. Nobody should have to say, "Oh, Lee, you got a stain on your shirt." Well, you're looking right in the mirror. You're walking past three mirrors before you even walk out the door. Big old stain. You can't miss it. You said, "Oh man, you're such a great friend. Thank you for pointing that out." Well, you saw it. You just was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
read your shirt."
Yeah, and I definitely I like that analogy because I think people will see that stain and they'll be like, "Yeah, it's there," and because they're just
And
comfortable with it. I don't need
hey,
you to fix it. I'm good
that's
with it.
right. I'm good
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
That's
And
right.
so, wow, that could be devastating for you if you're a codependent too. You're like, the stain is killing
Right.
me. Just let it go. Just let it go and go
Let
in the
it go.
opposite direction if
Right.
that's what your jam is.
That's right.
I really like what you're saying about these singles and being
Yeah.
like healthily coupled, healthily connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand that I saw that you have something called singleology.
Mhm.
Singleology. That's a mouthful for me to say. But maybe
Yeah.
you could tell us a little bit about what it is and how'd you come up with it?
Singleology is a method I came up with to assist me when I am mentoring or when I am teaching singles. And it is five different elements of the singleology. I talk about vision, I talk about consistency, I talk about unforgiveness, I talk about healing. I talk about the things that are necessary to get that single in a whole space. When I came up with the word singleology, when I was in school, and I still am in school. But I was thinking one day that, in one of my psychology class, while I was doing some work online, I kept looking at the last part of the word psychology, ology, the study of. And then my mind just went to singles. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start a singleology method where singles study. They literally have to study to really maximize their singleness because it's not something that we are taught. We're not taught how to be healthy singles. We're
Right.
just not. We learn along the way through the
Hmm.
bumps and bruises. We're not taught how to be healthy singles. So that's why I came up with singleology. Still waiting for Webster's to stick it in their dictionary. Maybe one day they will.
Uh, yeah, with much more use. Everybody start using that word. I'll start trying to learn how to say it.
Right,
Singleology. Much more use of the word. You know,
right.
I had a question that was on the top of my mind, but then I just kind of left it with that. But I'm sure it'll come back to me about
Mhm.
singleology.
Yeah.
Oh, now I remember what I was going to say.
Mhm.
So the question about singles. Now
Yes.
we've always been like you said you got married early, and I think
Yes.
we've always been shown how to just get married or how to be with someone else and what it means to be with someone else. So
Yes.
when I enter singleology and I'm maximizing my singleness,
Mhm.
what does that mean for me? What will I be doing to maximize my singleness?
You'll be doing everything that is necessary for you to stand on your own. That is emotionally, financially.
Mhm.
Because a lot of singles get in relationships for money. It's a business agreement.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm kind of behind on my bills. Let me get booed up and move somebody in, you know, back
Yeah.
up a call or two. So it's in every area. That's in finance, that's emotionally, that providing, being self-sufficient, providing for yourself, um, tapping into your ambitions without having to have someone to prod you toward the ambitions, learning how to start your own fire. I like Alaska shows. I love Alaska shows because there's always somebody trying to live out in the bush and literally they're out there on their own. There's nobody to call. They got to figure it out. And literally that's what singleology is. You figuring it out on your own before you even interject another person into the mix.
Mhm. Yeah, that seems like a very a survival technique that will benefit you in the long run because if you are alone, if
Hmm.
you're like I'm gonna just the first thing that came to my head was Home Alone 2 for some reason. Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2,
Right,
you're home and you just have to figure it out. Everybody's gone
right.
and you
Hmm.
don't really have the skills, but you do if you need to.
Right,
You need to put it
right.
together.
Absolutely.
So that's really important to be able to have the skills to know to challenge yourself
Mhm.
to figure it out. Like, so
Yeah.
that is that what you do? You kind of help people
Do
challenge.
I help them to challenge themselves because usually we're looking for someone else to challenge us. But you can challenge you.
Hmm.
Every day when I wake up, I'm challenging myself. I haven't always done that. I would stay in these sinkholes of my ambitions, and then I'll be like, "Well, there's nobody to support me, nobody to
Yeah.
push me. I guess
Mm.
I'll just have to stay here in this spot." But then when I really begin to awaken, like, wait a minute, Kelly, wait a minute, you can do this. And what will happen is, as you awaken to who you are, then the divine begins to bring you the support that you need. But you have to awaken to what you already have first.
Yeah, I like that. And the vine begins to bring you what you need because when you see yourself in the mirror and you see how awesome you're doing, you see the things that you're capable of, and you look back like, I didn't need you for that. So,
Right.
and then you see another person come along that looks just like that person you left, and you're like, well, I
Mhm.
don't need you for that either. So I'm gonna just
Right.
keep on going. And you just
Mhm.
figure out, oh, that's part of this pattern that you just broke. You're done with
Right.
it. So you
Right.
give the skills to do that. You don't give the
Mhm.
skills, you help people recognize that they
Yeah.
have those skills.
hmm I pointed out to him, and I let
Mhm.
him know you've always had it. It's just that we are simultaneously, even as children, if we look at how women are raised and how men are raised, we are not raised to be self sufficient and on our own. We're
Nope.
raised to get to a point to couple up and then start doing things. We're not raised to, start that process early. We're raised to be dependent. We're not raised to be self sufficient. So we literally have to break even those family patterns, cultural patterns. There's a lot of patterns we have to break. That's just the tip of the iceberg with codependency.
Absolutely. So then when you became more healthy, and I know that you've seen relationships change and move and flex. So have you been able or willing to or interested in holding on to those relationships or those connections that you've had before with people who haven't quite figured out what you have figured out?
What I typically do is I have people in categories. If it's coming down to my inner circle, I have to have someone in my inner circle that is in an evolved space as I am. So
Hmm.
there are many people I've connected to that talk the same way I do, that have the same mindset that I have. That's an inner circle, okay? But for somebody that's not quite there yet, so that I am governing my energy properly, they might not be in my inner circle. They may be in my outer circle. They may be in an associate category. They're not going to be someone that I will be around all the time because they're still in that let me grab energy from Kelly's space.
Hmm.
And I would always leave them drained. I didn't at first know how to do that. I was trying to just keep everybody in my life and try to help everybody to evolve. After I broke that fixer thing, I was like, okay, I need to kind of put people in categories here so that I am making sure that my energy stays up and I'm around people that speak the same language as me in my inner circle. So you
Hmm.
can still stay connected to people. You just have to decide how much of the connection you're going to be present for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds about like what I've done with people is I have people that are close to me that I'm able to share things with, that
Mhm.
I can lean on, that I know won't judge me when I share something, or if they say something about it, is going
Yeah,
to be productive and it's going to be
yeah,
helpful to me. They're not going to try and tear me down or take anything from me.
mhm, yeah.
And that is just a way to feel so fulfilled because as
Mhm.
a fixer, you can still feel like you want to help somebody, but you can't pour from an empty cup.
You
You can't
can't.
do that. You can't
You
do it.
can't. Mhm.
Yeah. So that's a
That's what
nice
burnout
balance.
comes in at. Burnout comes in when you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly trying to pour out of obligation. I'm obligated to do this is what my job is, but you're empty. You're dry as a bone,
Yeah.
and you're only hurting yourself and you're not being effective.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like there's nothing that you can really do if you can't take care of yourself. And
Wow.
we say that all the time. Like health is supposed to be the number one thing, but we don't
Yeah,
think about the emotional health that we have.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why you have these healversations. Now, how did
Yes.
you come up with healversation?
I just took the CON off conversation
Yeah.
and put heal there because literally all I'm doing, the same way that I'm doing with you right now, it is very laid back. I'm just talking and I'm listening. And my client and I, we dialogue, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
through healing conversation, and I'm actually not telling them what to do. I'm talking and what I'm doing is I'm asking the right questions and they're
Mm-hmm.
actually figuring out what they need to do just in the healing conversation. So healversation is healing conversation where
Mm-hmm.
typically if they say, well, Casey, what should I do? I would say, well, what do you think you should do?
Right.
It prompts them to go inward.
Yes, I'd like that idea. I like the example that you just gave too. It goes back to going shopping or carrying all the person's load. Like, well, make this decision for me, please. And like,
Yes.
no, no, thanks. You can do it. You know how. You
Right.
just haven't been challenged.
That's right. That's it.
That's
That's
yeah,
it. I make
and
people think about the answer.
yeah, it definitely sounds like a heal versation is all about how you were connecting with this person and you're
Mm.
not trying to one up them or anything in regular conversation or anything like that.
Mhm, mhm.
It's just about them.
Exactly. It is.
That
And there's no competition. There is no struggle. There is no battle. I am able to really connect. And I think my intuitive gifts help me as well because I am kind of feeling what is behind the words. And I may
mhm,
know the answer when I ask the question, but I'm waiting to see what they're going to say. And then I'm waiting for the divine to guide me and what should I say next? How should I go? Which turn should I make? My spiritual life has a lot to do with my business life because I can't operate conversations without my intuitive gifts. So a part of
absolutely.
what they built up is making sure that I have stillness, making sure that I meditate, making sure that I journal, and making sure that I stay in nature, making sure that I take time in solitude, that I pull in. All of that helps when I get ready to do a client. I don't overpack my schedule, person after person after person. I need to have time in between to decompress, to
Mhm.
rejuvenate, to recharge so that I can show up 100% for the next client.
Wow, that is absolutely wonderful. That's great that you take so much care in yourself because I know that if I'm your client, I'm going to get the maximum amount out of you, and
That's
therefore I'm going to get the maximum amount out of me. I can
right.
expect that for me. I love that.
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yes,
You
and I
have to
can
take
tell.
care of yourself.
Hmm.
Taking care of other people is never going to be productive or effective until you take care of yourself. You have to be the first partaker of your gifts, not other people. So, contrary to what we've been taught, well, your gifts are for everyone else. That may be true, but I first have to serve myself a meal that I may be strengthened so that I can cook a meal and serve it to another.
Hmm. Can you say that just one more time because I love that.
Yeah, I have to serve myself the meal so that I
Hmm.
have strength enough to cook the meal and serve it to another.
There you go. There you go. I love food. So when you said that, I'm on top of it. I love it. uh,
Are
you have
you a
to,
foodie, Lee? Are you a foodie?
I, I definitely experience life through food, through
Right,
food.
right.
And it's a shame though that I don't really cook for myself much.
Mhm.
And this is like I don't know if I want to share this, but if there were people that came over, I would cook. I would do something. I would look
Right.
at a recipe and I'd make
Mhm.
it all neat and stuff. But
Yeah.
for myself, I would just be like, oh, it's just food. So I'm gonna throw something
Mhm.
here. Every once in a while, I catch myself thinking like, you can get yourself a steak and you can make yourself a salad.
Right.
Just take some time to do it. Every once in a
Mhm.
while, I'll catch myself doing that. But for the most part, I'm like, I'm gonna throw stuff together and I'm just gonna eat because it's a meal. But the point is that um I eat anyway. I make sure to strengthen myself. So I'm just gonna go back to
Right,
that analogy. I make sure to
right,
strengthen myself so that I
right.
can do for others as well. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So how long have you been doing these healversations?
I've been doing the Hilversations for about 15 years.
Hmm.
Um, I just started this year making it a business, but I've been doing it for about 15 years.
15 years. That's absolutely amazing. And I'm sure you've helped so many people with that.
Oh my God, it has been, and I think that's why the divine is constantly pressing me on my own healing journey.
Hmm.
It's because I know that I am here on the earth to help others, but the divine is always reminding me that I still must help myself. Healing is really not healing until the healing you give to everyone else you experience.
Hmm.
It's not really, I mean, you really think about it, it's like if I'm going to give someone a gift, I'm going to give them a gift that I would give to myself. I'm not just going to give them something raggedy. So
Right.
if I'm giving them the best gift I can in healing, I have to experience that myself. And it helps me to be transparent when I'm talking to my clients. It's not like, well, you need to do this, you need to do this. I will interject when I was having a hard time recognizing the red flags. This is what was going on in me. I am able to be transparent and vulnerable enough to say, I've gone through this process that you're going through.
Right.
It makes me touchable.
Right. Because good leaders and people that you connect with, we can see ourselves in each other, and we're not being told, hey, we need to do something. You need to do
Right,
something, or this will work for you, even though I don't know if it'll work for anybody because I haven't experienced it. I've been told that. Well, I will go to the source then. If somebody
right,
told you that, I'm gonna go find out what they learned.
right.
And I'm gonna stop talking to you because you're not authentic, you're not experienced with this. But you,
Right.
on the other hand, you come open, you've experienced everything, and you're willing to share to take some of that shame out of it too. It can
Yeah.
be hard, but you made it.
That's right. That's right. When you said the right word, it takes the shame out. Because
Hmm.
when people show up and they're wanting to talk about really intimate things in regards to their hearts, in regards to their emotions, regards to their trauma, those are intimate things. There is
Hmm.
shame attached to it. They're coming to you because they can't come to anyone else. And
Hmm.
so the way you remove it is by leveling the playing field, because
Hmm.
even if you didn't deal directly with what they dealt with, you dealt with something that was kind of similar that brought up those same feelings. That's where you meet them at. You meet them on the same level playing field.
Right? Exactly. I believe that we connect with emotions. We all experience the same emotions. And if you can tap into what you've experienced and the feelings that you've had, chances are they've had them. They can see that you've overcome it. And I also believe that you can feel it like in this
Yes,
conversation that you have. You're like, yeah, I
yes,
know where you were. And you can definitely just
mhm,
feel that this is authentic. This is real.
yes, yes. And
That's
and
energizing.
you show up as a real person that has gone through a real issue, and that inspires them. It inspires them and lets them know, okay, you know what? I've talked to a real person that has gone through this real issue. They've overcome it. There's hope for me. They
Hmm.
automatically recognize there's hope for me if I have been touched by a real person that has gone through this.
That's just lovely. I mean, that's so wonderful. I'm sure I could ask you questions and listen to you and pick up these analogies all day and new vocabulary words and all that. But but I know that we have other things to do in life,
Right.
unfortunately. But I'd hope to have you again to talk to you again about this because it's been a really great conversation. And I'm sure there's a lot more that you could share with others. So before we get out of here, I want to ask you, where can people find you? What do you have going on?
Okay. So I have my IG page. I have a website. The website is remnantactivate.com. And my IG page is K Carissa Bass. Now, if you look me up on my IG and you hit the link tree link in my bio, it will link you right to my website. It also links you right to my YouTube page, which is HealVersations with Casey Bass. I also have a link there for my podcast. So it's kind of like Walmart, one stop shopping when you hit the link tree link.
There you
Okay,
go.
that's where they can find me.
All right. So, I didn't ask you about your podcast or anything. So, what is your podcast like?
My podcast talks about healing subjects. I think the latest one that I did was a couple of days ago. Fear is a messenger. I talk all things healing on my podcast. I am wrapping up a singleness and healing, my singleness and healing segments. With the last one was fear is a messenger. I'm about to now going into my interview segment. So those healing segments really tackle those things that we're dealing with. I am a mental health advocate. So
Hmm.
I am all things healing, all things emotional intelligence, all things mental health matters. So any subject that the divine pops into my spirit, that's what I talk about. And I'm really excited about having guests on so that we can really explore and unearth more things regarding healing, whether it be insecurity,
Hmm.
abandonment, codependency, rejection, breakups, divorce. There's a lot. There is a lot. Discrimination, race issues. There's just so much. There's so
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
There's so much to the human experience.
Yes.
So much. And you're all things healing, you said. So, we need healing in all of those spaces.
Right.
So, the final question that I have for you is, what would you tell our audience here? What would you give them to maybe help them go through a hard time, or just share a little bit of advice for them, or insight for them, rather?
I would tell them to give themselves grace. When we are going through hard times, we tend to be the hardest on ourselves. And we tend to think we should be over this by now. I shouldn't, I'm this age. I should not have to deal with this by this age. I'm old enough. I'm an adult. Give yourself grace because there is an emotional process going on in all of us. All of us are going on we're on our own healing journeys. And
Hmm.
when we give ourselves grace, what that grace does is it divinely gives us the support. The support will show up in our lives and we won't know where it came from. When we understand, okay, it's okay for me to be in this space. It's just not okay for me to stay in this space. So I'm going to give compassion to myself and I'm going to set intention for myself to receive the support that I need, and the support will come. You won't have to look for it. It will show up in your life divinely and you will find yourself opening those doors and overcoming those obstacles.
Wow, Casey Bass, give yourself some grace. It's okay to be in this spot, but it's a journey, so you can get up and go on. People will help you. I
Right.
love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And with that, we're going to end here. And I want you to make sure you check out her podcast, or actually just go to Linktree. You're going to find everything there. And
Mhm.
you'll also find it in the show notes for sure. So thank you so much again for coming. I really appreciate the conversation. I learned a lot from you today,
Thank you so much for having me, Lee. It has been an energizing conversation.
for sure.
Hey, big round of applause for Casey. A lot of fun with the conversation. We laughed a lot and we also coined a few words. Well, she coined the words and I'm just trying to take credit for it. I can barely say singleology. I practiced that. Singleology. Anyway, the artist Singleology, go ahead and check her out, her Instagram, and I'll have her link tree in the show notes, as I said. I just really hope that you got something of value out of this. She's all about giving value. All right, that's all I have for you today. My name is Lee Hopkins, my pronouns are he, him, his, and you have been listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. If this wasn't enough for you, you can follow me on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, and I'm also on Clubhouse. That's a brand new audio app. It's kind of like an interactive podcast. So if you're familiar with it, you can find Patterns of Possibility. I host a room on Mondays at noon. We talk about childhood memories, and I also host a room on Tuesdays about relationships. It's called Relationships. Bring your baggage and unpack here. The hope is that we start talking about things that are shameful, that seem to be secrets, and we're going to find out that we're not so different from each other after all. It's soothing to talk about things that you might think that you need to keep hidden. So I hope that you'll join me. Also, don't forget to sign up for, oh yeah, I knew that, the live interactive virtual game. It's going to be a blast. Until then, take care.